Monarchy. A monarchy is a type of government ruled by a monarch, which is often a king or a queen. The monarch's role is passed down through the same family, from generation to generation, often going to the oldest child. Major countries operating under a monarchy include the United Kingdom, Japan, Spain, Sweden, and Saudi Arabia. There are multiple forms of monarchies. For example, symbolic monarchy, where the monarch has no political or economic power, like the United Kingdom. Instead, the country is run by a parliamentary government led by a prime minister. On the other hand, an absolute monarchy is where the king or queen has the power to make all the important decisions in a country. The disadvantage of a monarchy is that it can lead to unsuitable leaders who came to power because they were the heirs. This often leads to a lack of democratic governance and the potential for abuse of power. Socialism. Socialism is a form of government wherein the workers or laborers are allowed to own property, but the distribution of goods and services is controlled by a central government. The government's goal is to distribute all of the goods and services equally to ensure everyone in the country has the same opportunities as everyone else. Some of the more common examples of socialist states are the People's Republic of China and the Republic of Cuba. While most socialist states call themselves republics, they usually follow the fundamentals of socialism, where labor and property are equitably distributed and there are no social classes or hierarchies. The reason why socialism is not as popular as some forms of government is the lack of incentives. If someone gets the same resources as someone who didn't work as hard, there's no point in working harder. This can potentially lead to the nation's failure, especially if no one is willing to work hard to get better incentives. Democracy. A democracy is when a country believes that the citizens are the supreme rulers of the nation. Democracy is as old as human civilization itself, but first appeared in the ancient political and philosophical teachings of the people of Athens. In a democracy, the people are the ones who determine the leaders and the laws of the land through a majority vote. It also provides an environment wherein fundamental human rights are respected, and the people are allowed to exercise their free will. Some of the most democratic countries in the world include Norway, Sweden, and New Zealand. However, the problem in a democratic country is that it can be too unstable due to constant leadership changes. Autocracy. An autocracy is when only one person or ruling party holds supreme power over an entire nation. Every decision that the autocratic ruler makes cannot be limited by external factors. These decisions are absolute and should be followed by the country. The autocrat also has total control over what the people can do when it comes to their civil liberties. In an autocracy, the people have no say in the nation's affairs, contrasting it to democracy. Autocracies have existed since ancient times, usually in absolute monarchies, where the king's word is the law. The Soviet Union, once ruled by Joseph Stalin, is one of the more recent examples of an autocracy. The biggest disadvantage of an autocracy is the potential abuse of power by the autocrat, who may become a dictator. Federal. Federal governments formally divide the sovereign power between a central government and the regions that form part of the country. The central government is still the leader of the whole nation, but allows the different regions or states to have control over their internal affairs. These states can have their leaders and laws, but are not independent nations. The reason why federalism wants to decentralize some of the functions of the government is to promote efficiency. This is usually the case for bigger countries, because it's easier for smaller territories to govern themselves than allowing a central government to govern an entire nation. It's similar to how the head coach of a sports team needs to delegate roles to his assistant coaches. The assistant coaches have a sense of independence in their roles, but they are still under the overall leadership of the head coach. The most common example of a federal government is the United States of America, which is under the leadership of a president, but has different state senators that manage their territories and constituents. One of the biggest drawbacks of a federal form of government is the possible economic inequality between different regions, because some territories have better access to certain resources that other territories can't have access to. Oligarchy. Oligarchy, which can be translated to rule of the few, is a form of government wherein only a few oligarchs have power over the entire nation. These oligarchs come from different groups or families that usually rise to power through financial or military means. The country's political, social, and economic affairs are settled through the decisions made by the oligarchs. Oligarchies, unlike monarchies, don't formally pass their leadership roles to the next generation, but can still stay in power for multiple generations as long as they maintain their financial or military status within the nation. The USA is formally a federal government, but is often seen as an oligarchy by most people because of the influence that large corporations have on the decisions of politicians. Modern-day oligarchies often arise when large firms and businesses become too financially powerful. The worst part about oligarchies is the potential economic and social inequalities between different classes. Only the rich and powerful benefit from decisions made by their fellow oligarchs.